Captain Lee Min-ho gripped the command chair as his ship slowly approached the massive alien vessel floating in space. The thing was huge, easily 10 times the size of any human ship ever built. But what made it truly terrifying was that it looked alive. The hull pulsed with a soft purple light, and strange veins ran across its surface like blood vessels under skin. "Sir, they're responding to our communication request," reported Lieutenant Park Ji-woo from the communication station. Her voice was steady, but Min-ho could see her hands shaking slightly. Min-ho had trained his entire life for this moment. First contact with an alien species. The Vorthak Empire had sent a single message to Earth 3 months ago, written in perfect Korean. "We wish to meet the children of the Blue World." No one knew how they learned human languages, or why they chose Korean specifically. The airlock hissed open, and Min-ho stepped aboard the alien ship with his small diplomatic team. The walls seemed to breathe around them, expanding and contracting, slowly. The air smelled like flowers after rain, sweet but somehow sad. "Welcome, Captain Lee Min-ho of Earth," came a voice like silver bells ringing. Min-ho turned and felt his breath catch in his throat. Walking toward him was the most beautiful being he had ever seen. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, but it was her eyes that stopped him cold. They were golden, bright as twin suns, and when she looked at him, he felt like she could see straight into his heart. "I am Princess Calathis of the Vorthak," she said, bowing slightly. "We have waited so long to meet your people." The formal introductions began exactly as they had practiced back on Earth. Min-ho spoke the carefully prepared words about peace and friendship between species. The princess nodded politely and gave the expected responses. Everything was going perfectly according to protocol. Then something impossible happened. Princess Calathis stepped closer to Min-ho, ignoring all the diplomatic rules they had established. Her golden eyes locked onto his, and she reached out to gently touch his arm. The moment her fingers made contact, Min-ho felt a strange warmth spread through his body. She leaned in close, so close he could feel her breath on his ear, and whispered 2 words that made his blood turn to ice. "Tiny bear." Min-ho stumbled backward, his face going white. That name, those 2 simple words, they were impossible. No one knew that nickname, no one except his mother, and she had been dead for 20 years. When Min-ho was 5 years old, his mother used to call him Tiny Bear when she tucked him into bed at night. She would ruffle his hair and say, "Sleep well, my tiny bear." It was their secret, something she never said in front of his father or anyone else. When she died in the transport accident, that name died with her. Min-ho had never told another living soul about it. Princess Calathis smiled at his shocked expression, but there was something sad in those golden eyes. "Forgive me, Captain, I did not mean to frighten you, but I needed you to understand that this meeting is far more significant than your people realize." Min-ho's team was staring at him with confusion and concern. Lieutenant Park stepped forward protectively, but Min-ho held up a hand to stop her. His mind was racing, trying to understand how this alien princess could possibly know something so personal and private. "How?" was all he managed to whisper. The princess's smile grew sadder. "That, dear Captain, is why we have traveled so far, to find you." The diplomatic meeting room aboard the Vorthak ship felt like being inside a living creature. The walls glowed with soft bioluminescent patterns that shifted and changed as people spoke. Min-ho sat across from Princess Calathis, at a table that seemed to have grown from the floor itself. "Before we discuss trade agreements or territorial boundaries," the princess said, her golden eyes fixed on Min-ho, "I must show you something that will help you understand why we sought out humanity." She stood and walked around the table, her movements fluid like water. Min-ho's diplomatic team tensed, especially Lieutenant Park Ji-woo, who had her hand resting near her sidearm. "May I?" Princess Calathis asked, extending her hand toward Min-ho. Min-ho hesitated. Every instinct told him this was dangerous, but something in her expression made him nod. The moment their skin touched, the world exploded into memories. Suddenly, Min-ho was 7 years old again, sitting in his childhood bedroom after a nightmare. His mother was there, her warm hands smoothing his hair as she hummed a lullaby. He could smell her perfume, feel the softness of her sweater, hear the gentle sound of rain against his window. But these weren't just his memories. They were perfect. More detailed than his own recollection, the vision shifted. Now he was watching himself as a teenager, crying alone in the school bathroom after being bullied. He saw himself joining the Space Academy, the day he got his first command, the moment he learned about this diplomatic mission. All of it played out like a movie, but seen from outside his own eyes. Princess Calathis released his hand, and Minho gasped, finding himself back in the present. His team was staring at him with alarm. "What did you do to him?" Park Ji-woo demanded, half rising from her chair. "I showed him what we can see," the princess replied calmly. "When we touch a human, their memories open to us like flowers blooming. We can experience your entire lives, feel your emotions, understand your thoughts." Minho was still reeling from the experience. "How is that possible?" "Our species evolved differently than yours," Princess Calathis explained, settling back into her chair. "Where humans developed complex verbal language, we developed the ability to share experiences directly. For us, touch is not just physical, it is a form of communication deeper than words." Park Ji-woo's expression was hard and suspicious. "You've been spying on us, reading our minds without permission." The princess nodded slowly. "Yes. For 60 of your Earth years, small groups of my people have visited your world. We have touched sleeping humans, read the memories of your leaders, studied your species from the shadows. We know about your wars, your loves, your fears, your dreams. We know the songs your mothers sang to you, and the nightmares that wake you in the dark." The room fell silent except for the soft pulse of the ship's living walls. Minho felt violated and fascinated at the same time. The idea that aliens had been secretly studying humanity for decades was terrifying, but the way Princess Calathis spoke about human experiences made it sound almost reverent. "Why?" Minho asked. "Why study us in secret?" "Because," the princess said, and for the first time her composed mask slipped slightly. "We were trying to understand something we had lost. Your species possesses something remarkable, something we desperately need to learn." "And what's that?" Park Ji-woo asked, her voice still cold. Princess Calathis looked directly at Minho, her golden eyes shimmering with an emotion he couldn't identify. "You humans have the most powerful emotional bonds we have ever encountered. The love between your parents and children, the loyalty between friends, the connection between partners. It burns so bright it's almost painful to witness. We have watched human mothers sacrifice everything for their children, seen strangers die to save each other, observed your capacity to forgive even the deepest hurts." She paused, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "My people are dying because we have forgotten how to form such connections. We hoped that by studying you, we could remember what we had lost." Minho found himself leaning forward despite Park Ji-woo's warning glances. There was something in the princess's voice, a loneliness that spoke to something deep inside him. "What happened to your people?" he asked softly. The princess's smile was heartbreaking. "That, Captain Lee Minho, is a very long and very sad story. Engineer Kim Da-eun had always been the type of person who noticed things others missed. While the diplomatic talks continued in the main chamber, she had quietly slipped away to examine the Vorthak ship's strange technology. What she found made her stomach drop. The ship's walls weren't just alive, they were sick. Under her scanner she could see the bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly like a dying heartbeat. The organic corridors showed signs of decay, and strange dark patches spread across surfaces like some kind of infection. "Captain," Da-eun's voice crackled through Minho's communicator during a break in negotiations. "You need to see this now." Minho excused himself and found Da-eun in what appeared to be the ship's central nervous system. Thick, tree-like structures pulsed with fading light, connected by thousands of thin tendrils that looked increasingly brittle. "It's dying," Da-eun said simply, pointing her scanner at the massive organic computer. "The whole ship, look at these readings. The bio-neural pathways are breaking down, the cellular structure is collapsing. This thing has maybe months left before it completely shuts down." Minho stared at the dying alien technology. But how is that possible? They seem so advanced. That's what I thought too, until I realized something terrible. Daun's face was pale. Remember how Princess Calathis said they can read human memories through touch? I think that ability is killing them. She pulled up a series of scans on her portable device. Every time they access someone else's memories, they're burning through their own life force. It's like they're trading their existence for the ability to experience other people's lives. The more they use this power, the faster they die. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying... I'm saying the Vorthak are a dying species, and they know it. When Minho returned to the diplomatic chamber, he looked at Princess Calathis with new eyes. Now he could see the subtle signs he had missed before, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she seemed to fade slightly when she wasn't concentrating, the sadness that never quite left her golden eyes. "You're dying," he said quietly, interrupting the formal discussions. The princess's composure cracked for just a moment. "Yes. All of you?" "All of us." The room fell silent. Park Ji-woo leaned forward, her diplomatic training kicking in. "How long do you have?" "Our homeworld has perhaps 5 years remaining," Princess Calathis said, her voice steady despite the devastating words. "Our ships like this one will last only months. My people, we have weeks, maybe days." Minho's mind raced. "Then this isn't really a diplomatic mission, is it? You're not here to make trade agreements or establish peaceful relations." Princess Calathis stood slowly, her regal bearing intact despite everything. "No, Captain. We are here to ask for something far more precious than trade routes or territory. We are here to ask for our survival." "What do you mean?" Park Ji-woo asked, though her expression suggested she already suspected the answer. "We wish to merge our consciousness with willing humans," the princess said, "to preserve our memories, our culture, our very essence within your minds before we fade from existence entirely. We have studied your species for 60 years, and we believe humans have the mental capacity to house both sets of memories without losing themselves." The human team exchanged shocked glances. Communications Officer Han Subin spoke up first. "You want to put your minds inside our heads?" "Not replace," Princess Calathis said quickly. "Merge, share, like two rivers flowing together to become something greater than either alone." Park Ji-woo stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "This is invasion. Conquest by another name. You're asking us to give up our humanity to save your species." "No," Minho said slowly, surprising everyone. "I don't think that's what she's asking." "Captain," Park Ji-woo warned, "think about what you're saying. They want to put alien minds into human bodies. How is that not conquest?" Minho looked at Princess Calathis, remembering the overwhelming sadness in her memories, the genuine love she had shown for human emotional connections. "Because they're not trying to take over. They're trying to become part of something larger. They're asking us to help them live." The room erupted in argument. Half the human team saw opportunity, a chance to gain incredible knowledge and abilities. The other half saw deception, a clever alien plot to steal human bodies and minds. Through it all, Princess Calathis sat quietly, her golden eyes fixed on Minho with an expression of desperate hope. "The choice," she said finally, "would be entirely voluntary. We would never force this upon anyone. We are simply asking for the chance to survive, even if it means becoming something new." Minho realized that humanity faced its greatest decision ever, and somehow he was at the center of it all. The alarm klaxons on Minho's ship started screaming at 0300 hours. He rolled out of his bunk and rushed to the bridge, still pulling on his uniform jacket. What he saw through the main view screen made his blood run cold. Dozens of Vorthak bioships had appeared around them during the night, their organic hulls pulsing with threatening red light. The human vessel looked like a tiny metal insect surrounded by a swarm of glowing predators. "How many?" Minho asked, sliding into the captain's chair. 47 ships and counting," reported navigator Yoon Tae-hyung, his voice tight with fear. "They just appeared out of nowhere. Our sensors never detected them approaching." Security Chief Choi Hyun-woo stormed onto the bridge, his face dark with anger. "I told you this was a trap, Captain. They've been playing us from the beginning. First the memory reading, then the sob story about dying, and now this." Minho stared at the alien fleet surrounding them. Each ship was easily 3 times the size of their vessel, and he could see weapon ports opening along their living hulls like blooming flowers. "Open a channel to Princess Calathis," he ordered. The princess's image appeared on the main screen, but she looked different. Her golden eyes were dim, and her pale blue skin had a grayish tint. She looked like someone fighting a losing battle. "Against exhaustion, Captain Lee Minho," she began, her voice weaker than before. "Please forgive the dramatic arrival of my people. They are frightened." Frightened. Choi Hyun-woo stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. "They're the ones with the fleet. We're outnumbered 50 to 1. Princess Calathis nodded sadly. "Yes, but you have something we need more than weapons or numbers. You have time. Time that we are running out of with each passing hour." Minho could see the desperation in her eyes now, the way someone looks when they're drowning and see a rope just out of reach. "What do your people want?" "The High Council has overruled my gentle approach," she admitted. "They demand immediate volunteers for consciousness merging. They say we cannot afford to wait for lengthy negotiations while our people die." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of the ship's engines. Minho could feel his crew's eyes on him, waiting for his decision. Some looked scared, others angry, but all of them were depending on him. "And if we refuse?" Park Ji-woo asked from her station. The princess's expression became even more pained. "Then they will take volunteers by force. They believe that saving our entire civilization justifies any action." Choi Hyun-woo exploded. "There it is, the real plan. Surrender or be conquered. Captain, we need to get out of here now, before they decide talking is over." "With what?" Engineer Kim Da-eun called out from her console. "They've got us surrounded. Our weapons are useless against their bioships, and we can't outrun them." Minho closed his eyes for a moment, thinking furiously. There had to be another way. Something that could save both species without anyone losing their humanity or their lives. "Princess," he said suddenly, an idea forming. "What if there was a third option? Something your council hasn't considered?" I'm listening," she replied, hope flickering in her tired eyes. "What if we didn't merge consciousness completely? What if we found a way to preserve Vorthak culture and memories without taking over human minds entirely?" Choi Hyun-woo stared at him. "Captain, what are you thinking?" Minho stood up, his mind racing with possibilities. "Voluntary partnerships, humans who choose to carry Vorthak memories alongside their own, like having a friend living in your head. Someone you can talk to, learn from, but who doesn't control you." The princess sat up straighter, her golden eyes brightening slightly. "That might work. Our memories could be preserved without overwhelming the human consciousness. But my council will say it's too risky, that we might lose everything if the human minds reject us." "Then we'll prove it can work," Minho said firmly. "I'll volunteer to be the first test case." His crew erupted in protests, but Minho held up his hand for silence. "If this works, we save both species. If it doesn't, you'll still have time to escape while I'm the guinea pig." Princess Calathis stared at him through the screen, her expression unreadable. "You would risk your mind, your very identity, for people you barely know." Minho thought about the memories she had shown him, the sadness in her eyes, the desperation of an entire dying civilization. "Yes, because that's what humans do. We help each other survive." For the first time since they'd met, Princess Calathis smiled a real smile, bright and warm, despite her exhaustion. "I will present your proposal to the High Council," she said, "and I will stand with you against any who oppose it." The medical bay had been transformed into something that looked like a cross between a hospital and an alien laboratory. Dr. Song Yoo-jin worked alongside Vorthak healers, their strange biomedical equipment growing from the walls like metallic plants. The air hummed with nervous energy as both human and alien technicians made final preparations. Minho lay on a biobed that had molded itself to his body shape, sensors attached to his temples and chest. Beside him, Princess Calathis rested on a similar surface, though hers pulsed with the same organic light as the ship's walls. She looked even weaker than before, her golden eyes barely glowing. "Captain, I have to say this one more time," Dr. Song said, checking her instruments. "We have no idea what this will do to your brain. The Vorthak neural patterns are completely different from human ones. This could cause permanent damage, memory loss, or worse." Minho managed a weak smile. And if we don't try, both species might die. I'll take those odds. Through the observation window, he could see his crew watching anxiously. Choi Hyun-woo still looked angry about the whole situation, while Park Ji-woo paced back and forth like a caged animal. Engineer Kim Da-eun was furiously taking notes, trying to understand the alien technology. The connection will begin slowly, explained Gila Morthis, an elderly Vorthak whose skin had the texture of aged wood. First, surface thoughts, then deeper memories. If either mind rejects the other, we will separate immediately. Princess, Calathis turned her head toward Minho, and he was struck again by how fragile she looked. Are you certain about this, Captain? Once we begin, you will see everything. Our failures, our mistakes, our darkest moments. And you'll see mine, Minho replied. That's what makes us partners, right? The princess smiled weakly. Partners? Yes, I like that word. Dr. Song initiated the sequence, and immediately Minho felt a strange tingling in his skull, like static electricity dancing across his brain. Then, slowly, he began to hear something that wasn't quite a voice. Hello, Minho. The words formed in his mind without sound, carrying with them emotions that weren't his own. Curiosity, nervousness, and underneath it all, a deep, aching loneliness. Hello, Calathis, he thought back, surprised when it worked. Are you ready to see who we really are? Before Minho could answer, the memories began to flow. He was standing on a world of crystal spires and floating gardens, watching a sun that burned with rainbow fire. This was Vorthai, the Vorthak homeworld, and it was the most beautiful place he had ever seen. Children with golden eyes played in parks that grew from living trees, while their parents shared thoughts and emotions as easily as humans shared words. But then the vision changed, and Minho gasped aloud on the medical bed. The rainbow sun was going out, its light fading to a dull red. The crystal spires were cracking, and the floating gardens crashed to the ground like fallen dreams. The devourers came without warning, Calathis's mental voice explained. A force from beyond our galaxy that consumed entire star systems. We were the first world they reached. Minho experienced the horror of that day through Vorthak eyes. Massive dark ships appeared in their sky, creatures of shadow and hunger that began draining the life from everything they touched. The Vorthak tried to fight, but their weapons were useless against enemies that fed on energy itself. We had 3 hours to evacuate our entire civilization, the memories continued. Mothers, carrying children they would never see grow up. Elders leaving behind millennia of history. Artists abandoning works they would never complete. Minho felt tears running down his real face as he experienced the desperate exodus. Vorthak bioships launching into space, carrying refugees, leaving their dying world behind. He watched through Princess Calathis's memories as they searched for a new home, visiting world after world, only to find the devourers had been there first. We are all that remains, she shared. The last few thousand survivors of a civilization that once spanned 50 worlds. And now we are dying too, burned out from years of using our memory touch abilities to search for a safe haven. But then something unexpected happened. As Minho absorbed her people's tragic history, Princess Calathis began experiencing his memories in return. She saw his childhood on Earth, the loss of his mother, his struggles to become a starship captain. She felt his determination to help others, his refusal to give up even when things seemed hopeless. Your species is remarkable, came her amazed mental voice. You lose everything and still find ways to hope. You face impossible odds and still choose to fight. How do you do it? Through their connection, Minho showed her. He shared memories of humans helping strangers, of communities rebuilding after disasters, of people choosing love over fear again and again. He let her feel what it was like to be human, to carry loss and still choose to trust, to face the unknown and still extend a hand in friendship. This is why we came to you, Princess, Calathis realized, not just to survive, but to learn how to truly live again. On the medical bed, both Minho and the princess opened their eyes simultaneously. Their neural patterns on Dr. Song's monitors showed something unprecedented, two completely different types of consciousness existing in harmony within the same space. It worked, Dr. Song breathed, staring at her readings in amazement. Minho sat up slowly, his mind buzzing with new awareness. He could still feel Princess Calathis' presence, like a warm light in the back of his thoughts, but his own personality remained intact. "How do you feel?" Dr. Song asked. Minho smiled, and for a moment his eyes seemed to glow with a faint golden light. "Like I'm not alone anymore, and neither is she." 3 weeks after Minho's successful bonding with Princess Calathis, the human ship had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a place where two species were literally learning to share their minds. Communications Officer Han Su-bin was the second volunteer. She had always been fascinated by languages and cultures, so when the opportunity came to bond with archivist Velthara, a Vorthak historian who held 10,000 years of her people's stories, Su-bin didn't hesitate. The bonding process had become smoother with practice. Dr. Song Yu-jin and the Vorthak healers had refined their techniques, making the mental connections more stable and less traumatic. Su-bin lay on the biobed, nervous but excited, as the familiar tingling began in her skull. "Greetings, young keeper of words," came Velthara's ancient mental voice, warm like sunlight through old paper. "Hello," Su-bin thought back. "I'm ready to learn." What followed was unlike anything she could have imagined. Velthara shared not just memories but entire libraries of Vorthak knowledge. Su-bin experienced the development of their written language, watched their greatest poets compose verses that could make stars weep, felt the joy of storytellers who kept their culture alive through the darkest times. But it wasn't just one-sided. Velthara was amazed by human literature, by the way humans could create entire worlds from nothing but imagination. Through Su-bin's memories, she experienced Shakespeare, read Korean poetry, felt the power of stories that helped humans make sense of their existence. "Your species creates meaning from chaos," Velthara marveled. "We preserve what was. But you, imagine what could be." Scientist Jung Mi-rae took a different approach. Instead of bonding with a single Vorthak, she worked with their memory keepers to understand the technical aspects of consciousness sharing. Her laboratory became a bizarre fusion of human-computer technology and Vorthak bio-neural networks. "The key is compatibility matching," Mi-rae explained to Minho during one of their progress meetings. Her eyes now held flecks of silver, a side effect of her partial connection to multiple Vorthak minds. "Not every human brain can handle every type of Vorthak consciousness. We need to find the right pairs." She showed him her latest research on a holographic display that seemed to grow from the table itself, another example of how human and Vorthak technology were beginning to merge. Engineer Kim Da-woon pairs well with their builders and makers. Navigator Yoon Tae-hyung has natural compatibility with their star readers. But some combinations... She paused, her expression troubled. "What kind of problems?" Minho asked, though he suspected he already knew. Mi-rae pulled up a medical file. Ensign Lee Dong-wook volunteered to bond with a Vorthak warrior poet. The mental patterns were too different. Now, he sometimes forgets which memories are his own. Yesterday he spent an hour speaking in ancient Vorthak, convinced he was someone who died 300 years ago. This was the dark side of their miraculous breakthrough. Not every bonding was successful, and some humans were paying a heavy price for the experiment. Dr. Song had established a special ward for volunteers, experiencing identity confusion. Minho visited them regularly, feeling responsible for their condition. Some days were better than others. "Captain?" Ensign Park Jun-ho looked up from his bed, his eyes unfocused. "Am I Park Jun-ho today, or am I Kethmaran, the star singer? I can't remember which memories belong to me." "You're Park Jun-ho," Minho said gently, sitting beside the young man's bed. "From Busan. You joined the fleet to see the stars, remember?" Some days, Jun-ho remembered. Other days, he spoke only in Vorthak poetry about nebulae that died before Earth was born. The problems weren't limited to humans. Some Vorthak were struggling too. Their species had never tried to merge with minds so fundamentally different from their own. A few had become lost in human emotions, overwhelmed by feelings their people had forgotten how to experience. But for every failure, there were remarkable successes. Han Subin had become a living bridge between species, translating not just words but entire concepts that had never existed in the other's culture. Engineer Kim Da-yoon was working with Vorthak biotechnicians to create hybrid technologies that surpassed what either species could achieve alone. Most surprising of all were the children born on the ship during this time. The infants showed unusual brain activity, as if they were naturally developing the ability to process both human and Vorthak thought patterns. Dr. Song called them bridge babies, the first generation that might be truly comfortable in both worlds. We're not just saving the Vorthak, Minho realized during one of his quiet moments with Princess Calathis's presence in his mind. We're becoming something new. Yes, came her gentle mental reply, but evolution is never without cost. The question is whether what we're becoming is worth the price we're paying. Minho looked out at the stars through his cabin window, feeling the weight of responsibility for two species' futures. Some of his people were losing themselves in alien memories, while others were discovering abilities they never knew they possessed. The bonding program was changing everyone involved, human and Vorthak alike. The only question was whether they would emerge from this transformation as something better, or lose themselves entirely in the process. Outside, more Vorthak ships continued to arrive, each carrying desperate refugees hoping for a chance at survival through human partnership. The fate of both species hung in the balance, one successful bonding at a time. The emergency alarm shrieked through the ship at 400 hours, jolting Minho from his sleep. He rolled out of bed, his mind instantly connecting with Princess Calathis's consciousness, sharing his sudden alertness and concern. "What's happening?" her mental voice asked, tinged with worry. Minho was already pulling on his uniform. "I don't know, but it's bad." He rushed to the medical bay and found chaos. Dr. Song Yoo-jin was working frantically over 3 human volunteers who were convulsing on biobeds, their neural monitors showing dangerous spikes of activity. Navigator Yoon Tae-hyung, who had recently bonded with a Vorthak star reader, was hunched over a computer terminal, his hands shaking as he tried to analyze the data. "Report," Minho ordered, his captain's training taking over despite his fear. "Complete. Neural breakdown in 3 volunteers," Dr. Song said without looking up from her patients. "Ensign Kim Min-soo started screaming in ancient Vorthak 2 hours ago and hasn't stopped. Lieutenant Bae Hee-jin thinks she's a Vorthak priestess from 800 years ago, and Specialist Oh Kyung-ho—" She paused, her voice breaking slightly. "He's completely catatonic. His brain activity shows he's experiencing someone else's death over and over again." Minho felt his stomach drop. Through his bond, he sensed Princess Calathis's horror and guilt. "This is our fault," came her anguished mental voice. "We pushed too hard, took too much. We're destroying the very people trying to save us." Navigator Yoon looked up from his terminal, and Minho was shocked to see tears streaming down his face. "Captain, I think I know what's happening. The Vorthak memories aren't just integrating with human consciousness. They're overwhelming it in some cases. It's like trying to pour an ocean into a teacup." He pulled up brain scans that showed human neural pathways being overwritten by alien patterns. The successful bondings happened with Vorthak who had learned to control their memory sharing, but these 3, he gestured at the convulsing patients, they bonded with Vorthak who were already mentally unstable from their own trauma. The damaged memories are consuming the human minds. Dr. Song looked up from her patients, her face grim. "We need to separate them immediately, or we'll lose them completely." "Can you do it safely?" Minho asked. "I don't know. We've never tried. To reverse a bonding this deep, the shock could kill them." Minho felt the weight of command crushing down on him. 3 of his people were dying because of his decision to allow the bonding program. How many more would suffer if they continued? Princess Calathis materialized in the medical bay, her physical form flickering as her energy continued to fade. Her golden eyes were dim with guilt and exhaustion. "Stop the program," she said quietly. "We cannot save ourselves by destroying you." The medical bay fell silent except for the tortured sounds coming from the affected volunteers. Minho looked at the brain scans, at his suffering crew members, at the alien princess who was sacrificing her species' last hope. "No," he said finally, "we don't stop, we fix it." Dr. Song stared at him. Captain, we don't know how. Then we figure it out. Minho turned to Navigator Yoon. You said the successful bondings happened with stable Vorthak minds. What made them different? Yoon wiped his eyes and focused on the data. The successful Vorthak partners had all learned meditation techniques to control their memory sharing. They could regulate what they shared and how intensely, but the desperate ones, the ones dying fastest. He pulled up more scans. They're just pouring everything out, trying to preserve every memory before they fade. Princess Calathis stepped forward, her form solidifying with determination. Then we teach them control, quickly. How? Dr. Song asked. We don't have time for lengthy training programs. Minho had an idea, dangerous but potentially effective. What if we create a buffer, a way to filter the memories before they reach human consciousness? He turned to Princess Calathis. You and I have a stable bond. Could you act as an intermediary? Process the traumatic memories from other Vorthak before they reach human partners. That could burn out your mind completely, Calathis warned through their mental link. Taking on multiple Vorthak consciousness streams would be like standing in a hurricane of alien thoughts. But it might work, Minho insisted, and it would buy us time to develop better screening methods. Navigator Yoon looked up from his calculations. It's theoretically possible. Captain Minho's bond with the princess is the most stable we've achieved. If anyone could handle multiple consciousness streams, it would be him. Dr. Song shook her head. This is insane. You're talking about risking the captain's sanity to save 3 volunteers. I'm talking about saving both species, Minho corrected. If we stop now, the Vorthak die. If we continue without solving this problem, more humans will suffer. This is our chance to find a middle path. Princess Calathis looked at him with a mixture of admiration and terror. You would risk everything for people you barely know? Minho thought about Ensign Kim Min-soo, still screaming in ancient Vorthak. About Lieutenant Bae Hye-jin, lost in memories of a dead priestess. About Specialist Oh Kyung-ho trapped in someone else's death. That's what humans do, he said. We don't leave people behind. Through their bond, he felt Princess Calathis's amazement at human compassion, even in the face of impossible odds. Very well, she said. If you are willing to risk your mind for my people, then I will risk what remains of my life to protect yours. Together, we will find a way. Dr. Song began preparing the equipment for the most dangerous medical procedure in human history. Outside, more Vorthak ships waited, carrying desperate refugees who needed hope. Minho was about to discover if the human capacity for sacrifice could overcome the darkness threatening to consume both species. Dr. Lee So-young had been watching the bonding experiments from the beginning, taking notes that no one else thought to make. While the medical team focused on brain scans and neural patterns, she studied something different, the emotional responses of both humans and Vorthak during the memory-sharing process. As a child psychologist, So-young understood that the earliest memories shaped everything that came after. When Minho's risky procedure to act as a memory buffer began showing dangerous strain on his consciousness, she knew there had to be a better way. Dr. Song, So-young said, entering the medical bay, where Minho lay unconscious, his brain struggling to process multiple Vorthak consciousness streams. I think we've been approaching this wrong. Dr. Song looked up from her monitors, exhaustion written across her face. 3 days of trying to stabilize Minho's condition had taken its toll on everyone. What do you mean? We're trying to merge entire lifetimes of memory at once, So-young explained, pulling up her research on a portable tablet. But identity isn't built from every memory equally. It's built from core experiences, especially childhood ones. She showed Dr. Song her data. Look at the successful bondings. Minho and Princess Calathis connected when she mentioned his childhood nickname. Han Su-bin bonded with the archivist through shared experiences of learning to read. The connections that work are built on foundational memories, not complex adult experiences. Princess Calathis materialized beside them, her form even more translucent than before. The strain of helping Minho process multiple consciousness streams was rapidly draining what little life force she had left. Explain, the princess said, her mental voice barely a whisper. So Young turned to address her directly. When you first met Captain Minho, you called him Tiny Bear. That wasn't just a random memory you accessed, it was a core identity marker. The love his mother showed him, the safety he felt as a child, that's what shaped who he became as an adult. She pulled up brain scans showing the neural patterns during successful bondings. The stable connections happen when childhood memories resonate between species. Not the traumatic ones, not the complex adult experiences, but the simple foundational moments that make us who we are. Dr. Song studied the data, her expression growing more hopeful. You're saying we should focus on childhood experiences during bonding? Exactly. A Vorthak child learning to touch share with their parent for the first time. A human child feeling safe in their mother's arms. These are universal experiences that transcend species differences. Princess Calathis's eyes brightened slightly. Our children, before the Devourers came, they played games very similar to human children. Hiding, seeking, sharing small discoveries with joy. So Young nodded eagerly. That's it. Those are the memories that can bridge species without overwhelming either consciousness. We start with childhood foundations and build from there. She began outlining a new protocol. Instead of attempting full memory integration, they would begin with carefully selected childhood experiences. A Vorthak's first moment of wonder at seeing stars would connect with a human's memory of looking up at the night sky. A human child's first pet would resonate with a young Vorthak's bond with their bioship. But how do we implement this? Dr. Song asked. Captain Minho is barely stable as it is. We start small, So Young said. I'll work with willing volunteers from both species. We'll use the new protocol to establish basic connections, then gradually expand the shared experience. Passe. Over the following weeks, So Young's approach proved revolutionary. She worked with young Vorthak who still retained clear childhood memories, pairing them with humans who had strong connections to their own early experiences. The first successful test subject was engineer Kim Da-eun, who had always been fascinated by how things worked. So Young paired her with a young Vorthak named Felthira, whose earliest memory was taking apart a biomechanism to understand its function. The bonding process was gentle, almost playful. Instead of the intense, sometimes painful neural integration of previous attempts, Da-eun and Felthira shared the simple joy of discovery. Da-eun remembered being 6 years old, taking apart her father's old radio to see the components inside. Felthira shared the wonder of a Vorthak child, watching their first bioship grow from a seed. It feels like having a sister, Da-eun reported after the procedure. Someone who understands why I love to build things, even though we're completely different species. The new protocol worked because it honored what made each species unique while celebrating what they shared. Vorthak efficiency merged with human creativity. Vorthak memory preservation combined with human emotional resilience. Most importantly, the childhood-focused bonding preserved each individual's core identity while allowing for genuine cultural exchange. Humans didn't lose themselves in alien memories, and Vorthak didn't fade away into human consciousness. As more successful bondings were established using So Young's method, something beautiful began to happen. The bonded pairs started creating entirely new solutions to problems neither species could solve alone. They developed hybrid technologies, artistic expressions that combined human imagination with Vorthak memory craft, and philosophical insights. That transcended both cultures. Minho finally woke up after 2 weeks, his dangerous experiment having bought them the time they needed for So Young's breakthrough. His first words were directed at Princess Calathis through their mental link. Did it work? Better than we ever hoped, she replied, her mental voice stronger than it had been in months. The children are teaching us how to be family. Looking around the medical bay, Minho saw human and Vorthak working side by side, not as separate species trying to survive, but as partners in creating something entirely new. The foundation of their alliance wasn't built on desperation or necessity, but on the simple, powerful memories that connected all thinking beings, the experience of being young, curious, and loved. The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the settlement of Mirai Kathis, where crystalline Vorthak biostructures grew alongside traditional human buildings like some impossible garden. Minho stood on the observation deck of the colony's central hub, watching the daily miracle that had become routine over the past 6 months. Below him, human children ran through the streets playing tag with young Vorthak, their laughter mixing with the melodic chimes that Vorthak youngsters made when they were happy. What struck him most wasn't how different the two species looked, but how naturally they had learned to communicate. "Watch this," 8-year-old Park Soo-jin called out to her friends, placing her small hand on the crystalline surface of her Vorthak playmate, Quintala. Immediately, both children giggled as Soo-jin shared her memory of yesterday's adventure, exploring the purple forests near the colony. Minho smiled, remembering when such casual memory sharing would have seemed impossible. Now it was as natural as children sharing stories, except these stories came with full sensory experience and emotional understanding. "They make it look so easy," came Princess Calathis's mental voice, warm with affection as she joined him on the deck. Her physical form had stabilized since the colony's establishment, no longer flickering with approaching death. The memory bonds had given her people new purpose and, somehow, new life. "Children always adapt faster than adults," Minho replied both aloud and through their mental connection. Their bond had evolved far beyond its original purpose. They were partners in every sense, leading the colony council together, making decisions that affected both species with shared wisdom and understanding. The colony itself was a marvel of hybrid engineering. Engineer Kim Da-yoon and her Vorthak partner Felthera had developed biomechanical systems that seemed to grow and think for themselves. Buildings that could adapt to weather changes, communication networks that transmitted both human electronic signals and Vorthak bioneural patterns, and transportation systems that responded to both conscious thought and verbal commands. But the real breakthrough wasn't technological. It was social. Dr. Lee So-young walked up to join them, her clipboard filled with observations from the colony's first psychological assessment. "The integration is even more successful than we hoped," she reported. "The children born here since the settlement began are showing remarkable abilities. They're naturally developing both human emotional intelligence and Vorthak memory-sharing capabilities." She pointed to a group of toddlers playing in the central garden. Little Kim Hae-won there can already do basic memory sharing with his Vorthak friends, and the young Vorthak are learning human concepts like imagination and storytelling that their species had nearly forgotten. Minho watched a human teenager named Cho Youngwoo sitting with a group of Vorthak adolescents, sharing his memories of Earth's oceans. The young Vorthak were experiencing water for the first time through his recollections, their bioluminescent skin shifting to blue patterns of wonder and delight. "This is what we hoped for," Princess Caelathis mused. "Not just survival, but growth, evolution." The settlement had attracted attention from across human space and what remained of Vorthak civilization. Delegations arrived weekly to study their success, hoping to establish similar colonies elsewhere. But Minho knew that Mirai Kathis worked because it had grown organically from genuine friendship and mutual respect, not from political necessity. Communications officer Han Subin approached, her role having evolved into something like a cultural ambassador. "Captain, we're receiving requests from 17 different worlds asking for help establishing their own integrated settlements. The Centauri colony wants to start a human Vorthak research facility, and the Tau Ceti system is requesting medical exchange programs." Minho nodded, unsurprised. The colony's success had proven that different species could not just coexist, but could create something greater than the sum of their parts. The human capacity for adaptation and hope had merged with Vorthak wisdom and memory craft, producing innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. "What about the other refugee fleets?" he asked. 3 more Vorthak groups have been successfully integrated into human colonies using Dr. So-young's protocols, Subin reported. "And there's something else. Long-range sensors have detected other, non-human species fleeing the expanding devourer threat. They're asking for sanctuary." Princess Calathis's expression grew thoughtful. "Our success has made us a beacon for other refugees. Are we ready to expand beyond human Vorthak cooperation?" Minho looked out at the thriving settlement, where 2 species had learned to share not just space, but consciousness itself. Children who barely understood the concept of species difference played together, creating games that required both human creativity and Vorthak memory touch. Adults worked on projects that combined the best of both civilizations, producing art, technology, and philosophy that transcended what either could achieve alone. We've proven that different minds can become one community without losing what makes them unique, he said. If other species are willing to learn what we've learned, to share what we've shared, then yes, we're ready. As the sun set over Mire Kathis, casting the hybrid architecture in golden light, Minho felt a deep satisfaction. 6 months ago, he had been a simple starship captain carrying out humanity's first diplomatic mission. Now he was part of something unprecedented, a civilization built not on conquest or mere coexistence, but on the radical idea that sharing memories could create understanding, and understanding could create family. The colony's name meant future memory in both human and Vorthak languages, and Minho realized they had created exactly that, a future built on the foundation of shared experiences, where the boundaries between species became bridges instead of barriers. Ready for the next adventure, partner? Princess Calathis asked through their bond. Minho smiled, watching human and Vorthak children chase each other through streets that belonged to both and neither species. Always, he replied. We've got a galaxy to change.